Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Today's webinar is presented by Sports Field Management Association. This week brings us to the end of our four-part series of post-conference education. Our featured speaker today is Paul Cushing. Paul Cushing has been in the sports field and golf course industries for over 32 years as an agronomist and sports field specialist. Paul works with many school districts throughout the state of California to help them revitalize their sports fields. Through his entire career, Paul has exemplified a unique ability to revive challenged turfgrass playing conditions. He is adept at finding solutions to restoring deprived soils with sound soil chemistry solutions. The overall focus is to share his experience and knowledge to help turfgrass managers better understand their individual turfgrass and soils issues. Today, he will be presenting Revitalizing Your School District Sports Fields. Attendees will be muted during the presentation. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A or the chat feature. Please type in your questions and they will be answered during the presentation. Thank you for joining us today. You can get started.
Okay, Kristen, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Thanks for being with us today. Really excited to be with y'all, and thank you for having me to be a part of this, and looking forward to sharing some great information with you guys and kind of getting y'all to start thinking. This presentation came about last year. You know, I think all of us have gone through a pandemic and we've seen what has happened to our sports fields during this process. And, you know, we weren't able to pay the type of attention that we want to our fields. We were, you know, our priorities were in different places. And I think now we're starting to get back to our fields and starting to really focus on getting our fields back to where they need to be. And so that's what today is all about. It's about sharing information, taking the things that we do here with our sports fields and our school districts here in California and sharing it with everybody. And we've got some really cool before and after pictures to kind of show and tell that story. And so this is going to be great. And it's good that we're all back and getting going here. So anyways, wanted to tell you a little bit about myself and what I do. 4 years ago, I started my own independent soil and water testing company. I do agronomic programs for clients. Everything that I do is independent. So I'm not tied with anyone. I'm not selling anybody anything. It's all about helping sports turf managers grow better grass and grow better turf and be more successful. And so a lot of what I do with the soil and the water testing is we put together agronomic programs based off of the results, and then getting together and kind of, you know, on a weekly or biweekly basis, working together with the teams to help them improve their sports fields. So that's what I do now. Before, a little bit about me and my past experience. I joined STMA when I was 13 years old back in, 1983. So that kind of ages me a little bit, I'm sorry. But my dream and my goal was to be a sports turf manager. I worked at the Rose Bowl in high school here in Southern California. And then as soon as I got to college, I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I got into golf. And so as you can see, I was a golf course superintendent for 27 years. For 6 years, I was the director of golf course maintenance operations at Torrey Pines in San Diego, where we hosted 5 Farmers Insurance Opens, and just recently hosted the 2021 United States Open. I also was the assistant and the golf course superintendent at Riviera Country Club in Los Angeles, Shadow Creek in Las Vegas, and Edgewood up in Lake Tahoe. So I have a vast experience with both golf and sports turf. That's pretty fun. With my company, I've gotten back into working with high school sports fields. I'm also a high school baseball coach, and so that's really gotten me in with the local community to help a lot of the coaches and the teams in our area improve their sports fields. So I work with a number of high school districts and have contracts where we work on an annual basis to help them with their soil testing, their fertility needs, weed spraying, you name it. So lots of really cool stuff. And along with that, also do a lot of work on university athletic fields, number of Division I programs, Stanford, UCLA, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. The picture that you see to the left is Westmont College in Santa Barbara, which I've been working with for about 4 or 5 years. Picture in the middle is Stanford University and their fields. And then a picture to the right, Redlands University here in Southern California. So just a vast, different representation of different types of fields. So anyways, let's get enough about me. Let's talk about what we're going to be doing today. This picture to the right that you see is San Marcos High School. They're a local team down in San Diego in our area. I work with them, as you'll see, on their fields, and they just won the CIF championship a couple of years ago. So this was a really cool picture. This is kind of our goal, is we want to be champions by the time we're done with this today. So part of this is going to be about revitalizing our fields. We're going to work, our goal, our end game in this is trying to improve your turf grass health through proper water testing, soil testing, to help everybody better understand how we can improve our fields from that standpoint. Having the ability to utilize the nutrients that are already in the soil and make our plants better. You know, a lot of us as turf grass managers, we do applications of fertilizer and sometimes it doesn't work. And so understanding why is that not working, what's locking those nutrients up and not allowing us to be successful. So we'll talk a lot about that today. We'll talk about weed control. You know, a lot of us during the pandemic kind of stopped controlling weeds. And so one of the first things we've had to do as we've come back is have to work on weed control, both as a post-emergent and then getting back into our pre-emergent programs. And so we'll talk definitely about that today. Animal abatement, controlling animals. Many of us have gophers, moles, different things that affect us on our fields. And so we'll talk about some of that today. Proper mowing height of cut. Really big part of this is which height is the height that we should be mowing our fields at. Should we be mowing high? Should we be mowing low? And so we'll get into all of that. Renovation practices. So not only are we going to talk about the chemical aspect of our soils, which we'll talk about through the soil testing, but there's the physical aspect of this, and that's our aerification in our verticutting programs and our top dressing programs. And so we'll talk about those things. And then finally, we'll hit upon some scheduling with everyone and talk about what it's like to put together a proper schedule for your season. And for us in our school districts, basically there's our school time that we're in school and trying to deal with elementary and high school sports for many of us. And then there's that time when the fields aren't being used, and that's when our time to get a lot of things done. And so we'll talk about all that. Okay, so we're talking about the importance of water and soil testing. These two fields, as you can see, the field to the left's got all sorts of issues. We've got water issues, we've got soil issues, we've got rodent issues, we've got sod that's dying. So if you're all seeing this on your sports field, you're at the right place today, even though hopefully I won't lose you again. Picture to the right is Santa Ana Unified School District and one of their fields. And you can kind of see some of the, we've got some distribution uniformity issues, some weed issues, some different things. So this is the importance of getting in and understanding what's going on. And all of us as sports field managers we are sort of doctors of grass. And so it's important for us to understand not what just is going on the surface, but what's going on under the hood as well. And so some of the effects when we've got poor water quality and a lot of our soils issues stem from our poor water, our lack of irrigation, efficiency, lack of rainfall, drought, any of those sort of things can play a part of it. Poor water quality tends to weaken turfgrass plants. It decreases wear tolerance. And in this picture to the right, this is a school in San Marcos. This is Double Peak Middle School. And so you can see the area in front of the goal is worn out and dead because the grass is under extreme stress. And so, decreased wear tolerance, we've got higher disease issues in these, increased insects, greater weed presence. You can see around the perimeter of the field, you've got clumps of weeds everywhere. But the most important thing that we see when we have poor water quality and different things going on and issues with our soils is the inability of the plant to be able to utilize the nutrients that are in the soil. So some things to combat this and some things to help you guys when we have soil and water quality issues. Make sure you're using moisture meters. There are a lot of really cool things out in the turf industry where we can detect our salts, we can detect moisture in our soils. So using these tools to help us monitor the percentages in our soils. I would highly encourage everyone, if you're not, make sure you're soil and water testing your schools at least twice a year. And the best times to do this are early in the spring. So getting pretty close here in March, April for a lot of our schools is getting in and pulling soil samples, understanding what your season ahead of you is about ready to look like. And so some things that you can get down to help the fields in the spring and the summer. And then we really like to test in the fall as well, because fall testing helps us do those changes to our soil chemistry during the course of the winter when we've got rainfall that could potentially help us, or snow, or different things that can help us leach out salts and those sort of things. So another thing is auditing your irrigation system. Understand what your uniformity is like, understand issues that you've got with your irrigation system. So if you have heads that aren't working, if you have nozzles that are out, making sure that you're getting out and having your employees monitoring your irrigation system at your schools regularly. So what we like to do is we like to do it early in the spring, do a kind of an initial audit once we start irrigating the fields again, and then at least once a month during the growing season. Just a quick run through, a quick multi-manual, just see, make sure everything's working properly. Water treatment. If you have water issues, if you test your waters and you've got some poor water, you've got high salts, you've got bicarbonates, you've got different things going on, there are some really cool things out there that can help you deliver your water before you deliver it out onto your sports fields. There's magnetic water treatment. There's reverse osmosis. I'm not here to push any products. That's not what I'm trying to do. But an example, there's a product called a turbulator by Magnesium, which it fits onto your main line coming out of your water source. And before it hits your sports fields, it's changing, it's injecting ions into the water to help negate sodium and different things. And so there are some great tools to help you if you do have poor water instances. I always teach this with everybody that I work with: deep and infrequent watering cycles. It's the same concept that if you get a good rain, you don't turn the irrigation on the next day. If you get a half inch of rain, you're not turning on the irrigation. Well, the same thing with our irrigation cycles is doing deeper, less frequent type irrigations to where we're not just adding poor nutrients and salts into the soil over and over to where it kind of builds up upon itself. So getting into more deep and infrequent irrigation cycles, especially when you have a game, let's say you have a high school football game, on Friday night after the game's over, that's a great time to put a good deep irrigation cycle to kind of leach some of this stuff through. So we'll talk more about that as we go. We're going to talk about utilizing calcium to leach salts out of our soils during the growing season. We'll get more into that. And then a really important part of this is going to be applications of potassium to really harden those cell walls and those plants and strengthen those plants to be able to handle wear tolerance a little bit better. So these are some things that you guys can do and think of as you're starting to get ready for your season. These are some things that can help you along the way. Okay, the next part of this is let's talk about our soils a little bit. And what I want to do is I want to break this down really easy for everybody. And something that's really important is understanding your calcium to magnesium ratio in your soil. And I'm going to go to the next slide so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. The picture to the left is what we're all interested in. So we're all interested in that infiltration of water, getting into our soil profile. And then once it's in there, we're into that ability for that water to be able to percolate and move through the profile. So a lot of us, if our fields are sitting wet, they don't drain very well. That's a lot of what you see on the picture to the right, which when our soil chemistry is not right, we don't have that ability for that water to be able to get into the soil and move its way through. And so what ends up happening on the picture to the right is that the soil crusts over and all that water just goes to the low area and it just sits. So if you have a lot of dry spots on your fields, and you have a lot of areas where you're irrigating and you're not able to get that penetration of water in, a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about is for you here in the next few slides. So really cool when looking at your soil testing is that when your calcium to magnesium ratio is at 6:1, your soils, magical thing happens is that your soils flocculate. And that's that infiltration and percolation that we were talking about in that upper root zone. So nutrients have greater availability when our soils are, the calcium to magnesium is at 6:1. All those good nutrients that you've got in there, they're now more available. And so that's a great thing. We're able to keep our soils a little bit drier. Drier soils equal healthier plants. It's a lot like along the lines of you go camping and you get your feet wet. You're miserable for the rest of the camping trip. Well, our roots are no different. If they're wet all the time, that's not where they want to be. And so, those when you have wet roots and shallow water, your roots are kind of right on that upper surface. That's not a great thing. See a lot of disease pressure, and most importantly, last thing, you see a lot of poanya infiltration into your fields. And so, this picture to the right is really cool. This is the University of Portland. Kevin White, who's the sports turf manager there, does an amazing job. Kevin gets upwards of 50 inches and above of rain during the course of the year. Really important for him to have that calcium to magnesium ratio as close to 6:1 so that he's able to move all that water and they're able to continue playing soccer during the course of their season. If your calcium to magnesium is not right, those soils are going to stay wet. They're not going to release water and you're just going to have a mucky mess on your hands. And so really cool fun fact about this field is that Kevin has won the Sports Turf Managers Association Field of the Year 2 out of the last 4 years with this field. And so really paying attention to your soil chemistry is an important part of this. The next part of this equation that we want to talk about is your potassium to sodium ratio. And so I'm going to throw some things up. I wish we were in person. We could do this in person. So we've got a bag of sunflower seeds here, okay, which is real good. And then we've got a banana. So both of these play an important role in our soils is that plants like both potassium and sodium the same. One is good for it and one is not so good. So if you were to think about eating a bag of sunflower seeds for an hour, 2 hours, your mouth is going to be dry, it's going to be chapped, it's going to be parched. Well, that's what's going on in our soils if our potassium to sodium ratios aren't right. So we'll talk about that as we get into our soil testing here in a little bit, but making sure that you've got 5 parts potassium to 1 part sodium is an important aspect of your sports fields. So let's look at our first field here. Oh, sorry about that. Getting ahead of myself. So this is Drake Field at UCLA. This is an example of a bad soil test. And so this is a base saturation soil test. And this is a really cool, a lot of our golf courses and sports fields use this type of soil testing because it gets us to the exact number where we need to be. And so it helps us achieve perfection in what we're looking for. So I've got my cursor here. We're going to start up at the top, our total exchange capacity. That's our electroconductivity, our soil, that's our energy of our soil. The higher the number, the better. So anything over 10 is considered good. And so you can see this field's got some good energy in it. pH of 7.3, which is not bad at all. Organic matter, 6. We like to see our sports fields anywhere between 2 and 5% organic matter. So this is a little bit high in organic matter, which will keep your water from moving down as well as we'd like it. Sulfur is high. We want to see our sulfur numbers 100 and below. When our sulfur is 100 or below, we're going to use gypsum when we make our calcium applications. When our sulfur is 100 or above, we're going to take high cal lime and we're going to combine with this sulfur and we're going to make gypsum in our own upper profile. So we'll talk about that more as we go. Phosphorus is low. We want to see our phosphorus numbers 400 and above. As you can see, we're deficient in calcium. We're deficient in potassium. Our sodium number is really high on this field. Oop, I did it again. So we want to see these sodium numbers on our sports fields 100 and below. So you can see this is 622. This is bad water, and bad water is causing some issues with this field. Our calcium to magnesium ratio is about 2-to-1. So you just divide your magnesium into your calcium, and that's what gives you your calcium to magnesium ratio. So we're 2-to-1 calcium to magnesium on this field. The real bummer on this field is that we're 10 parts sodium to 1 part potassium. So this is the problem. We want to be 5 parts potassium to 1 part sodium. We're flip-flopped in the wrong direction. And so we're going to talk about how to do that. Coming down to the bottom, we've got really good iron in the soil, which is great. Our manganese, we want to see that at 50 or above. That helps us with our color. And so anyways, we had a lot of work to do on this field. We made quite a few applications on this field. And I am very proud to say that this field was used for the Super Bowl this past week. This was the home field of the Cincinnati Bengals. And so this was a picture that we just took this week of the field. And so the soil chemistry issues that we've had with this field have really improved. We've gotten the salts out. We've done some applications of some high cal lime. We've leached those salts out and replaced with potassium. And you can see a really good field was used for the Super Bowl practices this week. So Kristen, we've kind of started off, we've gone through kind of this first main section. Do you have any questions that have come through so far?
Not at this time, so you can keep going.
Everybody's just excited that we're moving forward and that we're not dropped off. So I get it. I totally get it. So thank you guys. Okay, we'll keep moving on here. So here is an example of what I do when I go through and do soil testing with clients is we create a worksheet, and this helps our sports turf managers and our superintendents. We'll go through, and I like this format because it allows everybody to kind of write notes on this. And so when we sit down and go through, hey, this is what your soil test has come up, and these are kind of the good and bad. This is what I do to help them kind of understand this better. So you can see a lot of the things that we've talked about. Orange needs improvement and green is good. So as we go down, you can see an example. These are some greens. This is a golf course up in the Carmel area. And so you can kind of see to the left, we've gone through and put where we'd like to see them at. And then over to the right, we kind of calculate and show them. And so you can see they've got their pretty good calcium magnesium. These soils move very well. So they're able to get some really good water and able to move it through the profile. You can see their potassium to sodium is really what they need to work on. And so they've got to be doing some potassium applications to really improve these greens. And then you can see going through, they've got good iron numbers. Their manganese numbers are a little bit low. The problem with this golf course, and the main problem that we could see is look at how low their phosphorus numbers are. So we want to make sure phosphorus is all about root development. We want to make sure we've got at least 400 pounds to the acre of phosphorus. And so this was something we really had them work on. But just wanted to show you guys an example of what we do when we go through and talk about how you can improve your soils. Based off of that, we'll come in and we'll put together recommendations to help the sports turf managers. Okay, these are the applications that we're going to be looking for. What I'll do at that point is I'll recommend some products that I've used in the past as a superintendent and been successful in what we've done with our sports fields. And so we'll come through, we'll put together some recommendations on some different products. We come through, calculate all the areas. So their infield is about 7,000 square feet. So come through and calculate how many bags of material they're going to use for each application. And so this is a good way to go through recommendations. And then what we'll do is we'll put this on a calendar. And so everybody's calendar should look like this. All of your applications are all, this is UC Santa Barbara's, and these are different fields. So the green is the baseball field, the yellow is the softball field, red is soccer, you've got purple for lacrosse. And so all the different applications for the different time, which week, which month, they're all kind of set out. And so I would tell you as an organized sports turf manager, having a good calendar, having a good action plan so that when you have these recommendations and you've got to get it down, have a good plan in place to be able to help you get there. So, okay. Kristen, were there any questions on any of the soil testing stuff that we went through?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, cool. Now we're going to have some fun. Now we're going to go through some pictures, and you guys are going to see some before and afters, and we'll kind of talk about this as we go through this. And so this was San Marcos High School 2 years ago. This was their varsity baseball infield. And so you can see they had a Bermuda grass base infield. You can see some patches of Bermuda, but you can see a lot of issues. These issues stemmed from water. They've got really poor water quality. You know, they've got water coming in at anywhere between 1,400 and 1,800 parts per million sodium, which is not good. And so basically the salts kind of fried this grass off. Some very serious soil issues. And so basically got in, we soil tested this field, diagnosed, okay, here's what we're going to need to do. We did multiple applications of gypsum. We leached the gypsum to get the salts through the profile. We replaced with potassium when we were done. And so did that over and over and over again. So these pictures were taken in August. These pictures were taken in November. So we were able to get this field back and get it. So the picture to the left, you can see is that we have come in and overseed that field. We had a really good overseed. We had a good take on it. And then this was the following summer, and you can see we got the Bermuda grass base back. There was no sodding done on this field. And that's the really cool part of this, is that we were able to bring the Bermuda grass base that we had by using really good soil chemistry, leaching those salts out, using some potassium. We got some phosphorus on this infield, and we were able to turn this field around very quickly. And so San Marcos is probably one of the top 2 or 3 baseball fields in all of the San Diego region, and they do a really good job with their fields. So next field we're looking at, this is San Marcos, or this is Mission Hills High School. Picture to their left is their multi-sports field. So this field hosts soccer, football, lacrosse, field hockey. It's got about 4 or 5 different sports going on at it during the course of the year. And it's also used for all their PE classes as well. So you can see kind of a thinness. This is a tall fescue field. So you can see kind of a thinness, a worn out, you know, the turf is not recuperating itself very well. You can see the color to the right. You can see it's just lime color, you know, not very responsive. And so we came in, the calcium to magnesium ratio on these fields was about 2 to 1. So these fields were not draining very well. They're fairly new fields. They're probably about 4 or 5 years old. So they're a little bit constipated. We're not able to get water down through them. We were pulling in sodium 2 times more than we had potassium. And so once we were able to do some soil tests, put some programs together, this is what the same field looked like about 5 months later. And so you can just see the difference in the color. You can see, you know, you can just see the fullness of it all. This was their baseball outfield. You can just see a change in, you know, these fields had really good nutrients in them. They had a lot of good phosphorus, they had some iron, they had some manganese, but they was all tied up. And so once we were kind of able to unleash this, you can just see the health of the fields. And so these fields right now just look incredible. They're getting ready to just start their baseball season on the right. And these fields are going to be terrific for their baseball season. So this is Santa Ana Unified School District. This is Godinez High School in Santa Ana. This is a really unique field in that this field gets a lot of play. So this is a football soccer field, but it's also right next to a park, a regional park in the area. And so people have full access to this field in the afternoons and on the weekends. So this field really gets played hard. We came in, we soil tested this field. This field was about 1.5 to 1 calcium magnesium. So what this field had a huge crown on it, and all that water was just going to the sides and sitting in the sides, and they couldn't keep grass in the middle. You can see a mixture. There's some Bermuda grass in there. There's some ryegrass, a little bit of kikuyu grass on this field, but a lot of dirt. And so we had a calcium magnesium ratio right about 1.5 to 1, and we had a sodium to potassium ratio of 4 to 1. So all this this field was doing was sucking up salts. And then once it got played on a bunch, it couldn't recuperate itself, and it went ahead and went away. And so putting a plan together for this field, they did not want to sod this field. They wanted to seed this field. They also were going to close the field for a 3-month period during the middle of the summer to try and get it back. And so what they did is they did a fence around this field to keep everyone off. So we came in, we aerified this field about 4 times, did some good deep tinerification, some solid tinerification, just poked a lot of holes. And then we came in, started making some applications of some gypsum on this field, just to try and leach those salts through. And then we started the seeding process. So this is the same field 3 months later. So this is seed, not sod. And so you can see a little bit yellow, still young seed, but we were able to get this entire field back by changing our soil chemistry, getting our chemistry right, getting our water to start moving through the soils. We had to do some cleanup on some weeds as well. We had some weeds on the perimeters, but you can see this was a really successful field that we were able to turn around by just seeding. And this is common Bermuda that we seeded this with. So this was a great field. This is Del Norte High School down in the San Diego region. This was at the end of their baseball season. So this was taken in June, and you can see the white on top of the field. You can see the crust from the salts, and you can see this field did not handle traffic well at all during the season. And so really had a lot of things going on. The thing that when we soil tested this field, we had sulfur in the 400, 500 range, which means this field isn't draining very well. And secondly, we didn't want to put any more gypsum on this field. We didn't want to add any more sulfur to the equation. So we used high cal lime on the field. We did a lot of aerification. We probably did 6 or 7 aerifications on this field. We put applications of high cal lime down, combined with that sulfur that we had in the upper profile. We leached that through the profile with micro emitters, which are little spinning water sprinklers. And then we replaced with potassium the next day. And we did that probably about 6 times. This is what the field looked like about 4 months later. So this was June. This picture was taken about October. So you can see a difference in the field and see what was going on. Kristen, I see a question. Do we want to break off and have answer a question? If anybody had a question on one of the fields, real quick.
Sure. So the question is, can you give the soil test ratios and what to use to counteract highs and lows again, please?
Yeah, sure. So again, what we're looking for on soil tests, and I will go back I'm just real quick going to go back to our worksheet so that you guys can see. So I'm going to use this worksheet as an example. So to the left, I'm going to show, and Kristen, I'm not sure, is my cursor coming up so that people can see?
I can't see it. Are you moving it?
Yeah, I'm moving it right now.
Oh,
I was hoping
yes,
I could use that as my
now I
pointer.
can see it.
Oh, now you can. Okay, cool. So as you guys can see to the left here, don't do that. As you can see to the left, we've written down what our desirables are. And so we want our calcium to magnesium ratio to be 72% calcium, 12% magnesium, which gives us that 6-to-1 calcium to magnesium ratio. And as you can see, we want our potassium to be 5% plus and less than 1% on the sodium, which gives us a 5-to-1 ratio. So in order to achieve that, we're going to be in this instance, the salts aren't terrible, but when you've got salts 100 and above, we're using gypsum. When our sulfur numbers are 100 or below, and I'm going to show you where that is. So this column that I'm showing you right here, you can see our sulfur numbers are below 100. So we're using gypsum on this field. And what I do is I come through as I calculate, I'll calculate how much calcium we're going to need to be able to displace the sodium that we've got. So every field is different. It's not the same. Unfortunately, you have to come in and calculate everything as we go. But once you make those calculations, then we specify how much gypsum or how much high cal lime you're going to need, how often you're going to need to make those applications, and then how much water you're going to need to be able to leach and get those salts through. So, Kristen, I hope that answers that question.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, let's go back and let's look at a couple more fields here. Hopefully everybody's enjoying pictures. I always tell everybody what I lack in substance, I make up in really cool pictures. So hopefully you guys are enjoying that. And as a superintendent, I'm all about taking pictures so that I can tell a story, you know, because people forget how good the fields were last year or how good the golf course was. And so as a superintendent, I was big into photography and taking before and after shots. And I've kind of taken that with these fields and tried to do the same thing, is that people forget how bad the fields were, you know, and they'll tell you, oh, this field's never been so bad. Well, really, here's the picture from last year. It wasn't so bad, but I'd recommend you guys take lots of pictures of your fields, good areas and bad areas, so that you can be able to tell that story. This is Cal Poly San Luis Obispo's baseball field, and they open their season this weekend against the University of Washington. And so baseball season is getting ready to start for them. This was a couple of years ago, and this field was really a mess. They had 1/10 of an inch of rain, and they had a rain out. That's how bad their soils were. So their calcium to magnesium ratio was about 1.5 to 1. 1/10 of an inch of rain is not a whole lot of rain, and that 1/10 just sat right there. It didn't have anywhere to go. We couldn't get the water to move on this field, and so subsequently the damage that you see, a lot of salt damage, wear tolerance damage, you know, they had a lot of stuff going on here. They had some real irrigation issues, and so we were able to come in and fix that. So the first thing Coach Lee said when we started this process is he said, Paul, tell me when you want to bring the sod in and we'll resod this field. And I told him, we're not resodding this field until we fix the chemistry down below and we're able to move water. And at that point in time, if we want to look at it, we'll look at it. So I told him, I'll bet you, Coach, that we will not need any sod on this field. And he took that bet on. So this was the field in July before their baseball season. So you can see pretty bad. This was the same field in November. So same angle there, same field in November, no sod was put down on this field. We were able to correct the soil chemistry. We were putting gypsum on the infield. We were putting high cal lime on the apron and on the outfield after we got our soil test results back. And so really powerful, as you could see the difference in the chemistry. You could see how everything refilled back in again. And then the picture to the right, this picture was taken in April. And so you could really see the color changing on the turf. You know, the picture on the left, you can see it still has kind of that lime yellow as it's still in the process of recovery and change. You know, there's a metamorphosis going on in that soil that you can start to see. And then you get over to the right as you can really see things get released. So great story about this is I collected a 6-pack of soda from Coach Lee on the bet because we didn't sod anything. And then secondly, the opening week of the season, they got 3.5 inches of rain the day before their opening game. They mowed the following morning and they played that weekend series. The following week they were playing Stanford. They got 4 inches of rain. They were able to play all those games. They were able to mow the field. So when you get that calcium to magnesium right, you get that water to be able to move through the profile, really cool things start happening with fields. And these are 2 really good examples of A, we were able to improve the turf up on top, and B, we were able to help start to move water consistently through the profile. This is UCLA's Jackie Robinson Stadium. This is home of UCLA baseball. This is a really cool baseball facility. They host a lot of NCAA regions because UCLA is so good. You could see this was the picture to the left is at the end of their baseball season. And so a lot of worn, you know, that's where they put their portable pitching mound at. They, you know, they throw a lot of batting practice from that area. So you can see the field worn out. The picture to the right was an attempted overseed. They had started to overseed that field and didn't get a very good take. You can also see some irrigation issues in the middle of all that. So we came in, so these pictures were taken in October, before baseball season. This picture was taken February, right as baseball season started. So right about this time is when we took these pictures. And you can just see a difference in the color, and you can see a transformation of what was going on. So really cool things going on. You know, calcium and magnesium on these fields were about 2.5, 3 to 1, so not awful by any means. Their potassium and sodium were about even; they were about 1 to 1. But this field gets a lot of wear and tear, a lot of play on it, and if you don't have that ratio correct, you know, these fields get worn out. So you could start to see some change. So, kind of summarizing what we just went through and talking about soils, I know I'm talking fast and I'm trying to cover a lot for you guys, is that our calcium to magnesium ratios are really important for water movement. Our potassium to sodium is very important for the turgidity and the stiffness of the plant. And the rigidity is that when that blade gets knocked down, we want that plant to be able to bounce back up again. And so turgidity is really important. Understanding what your sulfur number is, on whether you're going to use gypsum or high cal lime, making sure that your organic matter is correct. So for greens, that's obviously, you know, what you guys are worried about, but for our sports fields, we want to see between 2% and 5% organic matter on our sports fields. Iron and manganese are really important, along with nitrogen for color. Phosphorus, making sure that number is 400 above. And we haven't talked a whole lot about pH, but understand what's going on with your water, and that'll help you understand your pH. I would challenge you guys and tell you that when you get your calcium to magnesium ratios in proper ratio, your pH is going to come in alignment much better as well. And so don't chase pH down the rabbit hole. You're never going to catch it. Work on getting your ratios right, and your pH will come in alignment with that. So, okay. Moving on, I know we're close on time, so we're going to keep going here. Animal abatement on sports fields. I'm not expecting you guys to be Bill Murray and Caddyshack to the left here. That's not a good animal abatement program on our sports fields. But anyways, stuffing a hose down a hole is not going to be successful. So I hope you all get that after we're all done. Trapping and baiting are still the best methods to be able to control gophers and moles and different animals on our properties. If you have that ability, great. Make sure that you're consistent with those programs. Stay on them. Keep trapping, keep baiting. Don't do it for a little while and stop. As soon as you see anything, make sure you stay on it. A lot of our sports fields in our school districts here in California are using the vegetable oil or the carbon monoxide machines, and they've been very effective. I would recommend to you guys, make sure you start controlling. If we have an open field to the next to our sports fields, that we can see all the rodents coming onto our fields, we can see where the gophers are coming from. Make sure you start on that portion so that we can keep any new rodents, animals coming onto our fields from that point. Once you're able to start from there and control them there, then make sure you're working on the inside, and make sure you're working in groupings. And I'm not telling you have to go buy 3-4 machines to make this work. But if you have a couple of machines, instead of having one on one field and one on another field, is put those 2 machines together and have them work together in unison. Because remember, our gophers are going to push soil up against where they're at underneath, and try and keep that oil or that carbon monoxide out. And so if you're hitting it from multiple directions, you're able to have better success, and we see better control with our school district fields. So consistency is your key for long-term success. So if you're doing this, you can't do it for a week and then stop and move on to the next one. So make sure you control at that field, get that field complete, then move on to the next field from there. So I know a lot of you guys are using vegetable oil and the carbon monoxide machines. They're very effective, but you got to stay consistent with them. I think we have a question, Christian. You want to answer that one?
We do. We had one come into the chat box too. I'm going to ask you that one first.
Okay.
Can you manipulate the porosity by changing the chemical soil makeup?
Porosity is more of an air thing. And so I would tell you, and we're going to get to this slide going forward, aerifying the physical aeration of these soils is really an important part of porosity. And so you're not going to change porosity much with physical soil chemistry. You're going to do it more with aerifying. So if you stay with us for just a second, we're going to talk about aerification here in the next few slides. So really good question though.
Okay. And the other question is, do the calcium, magnesium, and potassium sodium ratios apply to all types of soil? Do you fix them the same way on a sandy soil compared to a heavy soil? The soil in my
Absolutely.
area is a sandy loam with some clay.
Yeah, so your struggles on that sandy loam are keeping nutrients in your soils, is that you're leaching a lot. And so by building that calcium to magnesium ratio to that 6:1, it allows you to hold on to more nutrients. You're not losing nutrients as you go through. I would also tell you is pay very close attention on sandy soils to your organic matter percentage. Organic matter allows you to hold on to moisture and allows you to hold on better to nutrients and different things. And so a lot of times on sandy soils, we see our organic numbers being on the low side. Make sure you're paying attention to that. And what we like to do, we talk about when we're building up organic matters, we like to do it nice and slow in our soils. And diversification of different organic products is important. Don't use just the same product over and over again. Using blood and bone meals, using chicken manure products, using using different types of organics. You add all those different microbes into the profile, and you're able to build diversification in your soils. And so, yes, for a sandy soil, just as important to pay attention to that stuff as it is in a heavy clay soil. Good question.
That's all the questions for now.
Okay, cool. You guys are awesome. Hopefully we're moving along here. Weed control on our sports fields. Picture on the left, this was Mission Hills baseball field. I've shown you guys some cool pictures of Mission Hills baseball field. This is what it looked like during the pandemic. So they stopped controlling weeds. They stopped paying attention. They stopped mowing this field. This field was about 90% clover. And that's not a good thing, but it was really cool. Once we cleaned it, we had a beautiful turf underneath it that would just shade it off. And so proper height of cut and mowing frequency, I think, is an important part of weed control. Here's an example. I mean, this field was left months without being mowed. I mean, it was about 18 inches at one point. They stopped mowing it. And so constantly mowing, making sure that you're mowing a little bit lower on your sports fields, your football fields, your soccer fields, your baseball fields, mowing those a little bit lower will help with your weeds as well. But that consistent mowing on a weekly basis, whether it be a couple of times a week, will certainly help with weed control as well. As you can see here, I've put, I am not here in the business of selling products but just telling you guys what works really well. This is a combination of herbicide Speed Zone and Lontril in combination. And I really love this combination. It's like peanut butter and jelly together, in that the Speed Zone is really good on your broadleaf weeds, your dandelions, your plantains, your thicker bladed weeds. And then Lontril is really good on clover. And so the combination of those two do a heck of a job. So on this field, we did an application. We did 2 applications of Speed Zone and Lontril on this field, and we completely wiped out all of the weeds on this. And so it was a good thing. So I know all over the country, we have different products and different things. Shoot me, text me or send me an email. You'll get my information here a little bit later. If you have any questions on any products or anything, I'm happy to help you through that. So a lot of things that we do on school districts is we make applications on weekends. We'll do it on the holidays. We'll do it on school breaks. If they're gone for, an Easter break, we'll make a lot of our applications at that time. We'll do nighttime applications. I know it's hard with school in session and all the sports that we've got on our fields. It's hard to make those applications. And we can all come up with 1,000 excuses on why we can't do it. And I totally get it. But being a little bit creative and finding that window where you can get that material out, on non-play periods is is the key to controlling. So make sure that when you do an application of herbicides that it's on the leaf for at least 24 hours without any water. Will be the most successful. And then make sure you water all applications in after 24 hours before you get players back on the field, just to make sure that you take any liability issues off the plate. Also, I'm going to add this in. Make sure you always add a little bit of fertilizer or a little bit of wetting agent to your mix when you spray. It helps with the uptake of the material. It's almost like adding a little bit of sugar in with your spray. When you add a little bit of fertilizer, it helps that plant wants to uptake that fertilizer, and you've got the herbicide in there as well. So using fertilizers and wetting agents are a really key part of success in herbicide programs. And then once you've got your weeds under control, pre-emergent applications at least 2 times a year to control your broadleaf weeds are an important part of staying ahead of it. And so right about now here in California, we're starting to make our pre-emergent applications over the next month. And then again, in kind of the September, October range, we'll be doing that. Again, wherever you're at, that kind of depends a little bit. Okay, Kristen, I see some more questions. Do we have anything else?
Yes, we have some in the chat. Okay, so regarding organic matter, top dressing after coring, or how do you choose proper top dressing material?
Yeah, that's like in one slide here. So be patient on that. We will talk about that here in a second. That's a great question, and we'll touch upon that. I think that's the next slide.
That was the only question that came in.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move on then. Oh, no, but I lied. It's going to be in the next one. So we've talked about proper height of cut on our fields. And I'm just going to give you guys, I see this more on school district fields more than anything, is that we never want to mow off more than 1/3 of the leaf blade at one time. And I know when we're mowing weekly on fields and it's the growing season, or if we're in the middle of summer, we're mowing every other week. I know this is really hard, but a lot of this, I really see this really affect fields, is that if you cut off more than 1/3 of that leaf blade, you set the turf back, you end up just leaving the clippings on top, which is not a good thing. You end up, with disease down below. And when a plant isn't able to photosynthesize, it starts to yellow and it gets hot, all sorts of things. And so making sure you never mow more than 1/3 of the leaf at one time is a really key part of being successful. Making sure in the springtime, once your turf comes out of dormancy or you come out of your winter period, start low with your height of cut. We do this on golf course fairways all the time, is that in that spring with Bermuda grass, we'll really start low. We'll get that down to, like a 1/4 inch or so, and then we'll start to work our way back up during the summertime. But use that spring as kind of a rejuvenation process to get that height of cut down, and then start to kind of let it build up during the summertime. And subsequently, during the middle of the summer and the heat and the stress, raise your height of cut to help your plant through heat stress. In the fall, we want to think about lowering our heights of cut back down again. Once it starts to get cold, we think, oh, we're done. We don't have to deal with this anymore. That's when we really like to get our plants back low again, get our canopy tight, lots of applications of potassium at that time to really tighten those plants up and help to winterize them. When possible, we want to use a reel mower to achieve a lower height of cut. So I would tell you, if you're mowing 1 inch or lower, you want to use a reel type mower instead of a rotary mower. Some of us have no choice. We have to use a rotary mower, but in order to get a better cut, more quality, I would highly recommend a reel mower. And by rule, the lower height of cut, mowing the field, you're going to have to mow it more often. So the picture to the right, this is the school district field. This is a baseball field. They mow this field. The coach mows this field about 3-4 times a week. So he's mowing this field at about 3/4 of an inch. If you're mowing at that low of a height, the more often you can mow it, the better. And then possible using growth regulators on these type of fields is really an important thing, and it's an important tool for us to use. It helps keep the plant more dense. It helps with wear tolerance. It helps from getting a lot of clippings during the field or during the season as we go through the process. So proper height of cut, I can't tell you guys enough. I see this all the time. Keep your fields as tight as you possibly can. Keep it as low as you can to try and create a better surface for your players. Okay, so now we're going to get into physical aerification. We've talked about aerification. We're going to talk about top dressing here. I'd tell you guys, you can't poke enough holes on these fields during your growing season. And so in golf, what we do on our greens is pretty much on a weekly or bi-weekly basis is we're quad tine, solid tine aerifying our greens. And so the picture to the right you can see is a solid tine, just to break up that surface tension to allow us to be able to get some good sand on there. Being able to get our gypsum applications down and then being able to leach through the profile. And so aerification is a really important part of this process. And I'm going to tell you, core aerification is important. And I would tell you at least one time a year, you're going to want to get a core aerification in. But solid tine aerification and just poking a hole in that upper surface is the key to being successful in sports fields on our school district fields. So let me get into it. Deep tine aerification, the product to the right is called an airway. And I like to use this a lot on sports fields. They have a larger tine that you can see there, and they also have a really fine sports tine, which goes down about 8 inches or so, but it's a really narrow tine. It doesn't affect the fields too much. And so deep tine aerification is a really key aspect to this, but just opening up holes, allowing for that gas exchange, reducing compaction, all these are good things on our fields. Don't be afraid to poke solid holes, during the course of the season. And when you have goal mouse and those sort of things, when the team goes on the road for a week, poke some holes with solid tines in there just to keep those areas open and help with the recovery. So aerification is a key part of this. Verticutting is a key part of this. This is a really cool machine. This is called an FDS. It's from Wood Bay. And I've seen this work on quite a few sports fields, and it's great because there's no physical moving parts to this. It's just basically scratching the turf and lifting it. So the left, you can see it's scratching, it's lifting that Bermuda grass up. And then the picture in the center, we come and we mow it in a couple of different directions to mow it off. And then the picture to the right is that's what it looks like when it's done. And so it's a really clean operation, but I like to constantly tickle warm season grasses, once a month, just get in there, tickle it, come in and cut it off. It's a form of verticutting. We all know the physical verticutting of just getting in and mucking it out. A machine like this helps you alleviate creating a big mess and a big job of opening it up. Also, you can take this same unit and you can use it on your artificial turf fields. If you've got field turf or any of those things on football fields, it's great for lifting up those stems and getting it straight up. And it also distributes the rubber particles really well as well. Sand top dressing. We were talking about particle sizes, and it differentiates. Think of sand. I would think of, if I were you, to think of sand as being a basketball. And if we were to fill the room that we're in full of basketballs, we would have a lot of porosity in between those basketballs. You've got a lot of air movement. You've got a lot of distance between the basketballs. Versus if we fill that room up with a bunch of golf balls, the porosity is very low. So the question asking particle sizes and what we recommend particle size, the higher the cut of turf, the larger the sand particle you can go ahead and go with and be successful with it. If you have a low height of cut, if you're mowing at a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch, the finer the sand to be able to allow it to get into the upper profile and get into your thatch layer. And so it really depends. Your particle size on sand depends on what your height of cut is and what's your management scheme. So, but top dressing is a really key component. And if you can't top dress all of your fields, make sure you're doing your heavy wear areas, because the powers of silica and turf grass are really powerful. Silica helps really stiffen that plant up and those blades up, along like what potassium does. And so sand top dressing not only helps level our fields, even everything out, but it really helps with wear tolerance on our fields. So sand top dressing is a key component. Okay, Kristen, do we have any questions that have come in new? I see some chat ones here.
No new questions, no.
Okay, cool. All right, we're just finishing up, Kristen. I'm sorry I'm running a little over. It was my technical difficulties. We should be done here in a few minutes, so I will finish this up. Seasonal scheduling. I love this quote by John Wooden, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And it's so true. Make sure in your off season that you're setting up your schedules. We want to aerify our fields at least 2 times a year, 1 core aerification and 1 solid tine / deep tine if possible. So 2 times minimum, more times if you have wear areas on centers of football fields or goal mouths in soccer, or the area behind home plate in baseball, you can aerify those, as much. You can do it weekly, bi-weekly if you'd like to. Warm season grasses, we want to verticut or tickle every 4 to 6 weeks during the growing season. Make sure that things are actively growing. For a lot of us here on the West Coast, by the time we get to April, May, that's a good time to start with our verticutting and our tickling programs. Sand top dressing monthly during the growing season if you can, at least on your wearers like we've talked about. Making sure you're getting that irrigation audit in early in the spring. Understand what your irrigation system is when you turn it on. Just don't say, hey, it worked great in the fall when I shut it down. It's got to be good in the spring. Make sure you're watching it in the spring. A lot of things happen during the course of a winter. So doing an audit in the spring and then monthly audits to go through your systems, make sure everything's good. Pre-emergent applications in the spring and the fall. We talked about that before. And then summer break from school does not mean we stop mowing or maintaining our fields. Make sure that during your breaks that you guys are continuing to keep that turf low. Don't let it grow back up again and then have to create a big mess to get it all back down again. So scheduling is a key part of being successful. This is it, everybody. Maintain like a champion the spring and summer. I hope I was able to help you guys. Here is my information. Please feel free to reach out, drop me a line on email, text me. That's my cell phone number. The cool thing about calling me or texting me is you get a call back or text. And so I'm really good about answering questions, anything I can do to help you out. And then also that's why my website too, there's some really cool sports pictures and a lot of the before and after stuff that you guys saw are on the website. So Kristen, that's it. If we have some questions, we'll go through that.
Yes, we have one in the chat. He said that you talked on sand top dressing. Did I miss the ideas of organic matter rates, or how do you decide?
Yeah, good question. So again, when you do your soil testing, and remember your soil testing down to about 4 inches, which is right where our root zone is. If that soil test comes back with low organic matter, then yes, you can add organic matter in with your top dressing, and you can blend it. You can do it. A lot of times what we do is we blend our own on a golf course. We'll get some really good, rich compost that's finished, and we'll blend that in with our sand and kind of create our own special mix, or you can order it through your sand company. But a good rule of thumb is that if you're below 1, if you're in the 1 or the 1.5 range, then you can add some sand and add some organic in. If you're anywhere between that 2 and 5%, like we talked about before, no need to add organic into your sand top dressing mix. You can just go ahead and go with straight sand. Hope that helps.
All right, I think that is it for questions. If you guys think of anything else, again, right there is Paul's contact information, so feel free to reach out to him. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. That concludes our 4 weeks of post-conference education. I hope you all have a great rest of the week.
Thank you, Kristen. Thanks to everybody.